I'd like to convene the Single Family Design Board for November 7th, 2022. May I have roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Here.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Here.
Board Member Anderson,
Here.
Board Member Kalian,
Here.
Board Member Klein.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Public comment. Any member of the public may address the board for up to 2 minutes on any subject within its jurisdiction that is not scheduled on this agenda for public discussion. Do we have anyone that would like to come forward or anything online?
Thanks, Chair Miller. We did receive one written correspondence here from a Charlie Boss. It's regarding 1269 Farello Road, and it was last reviewed on September 12th. There's a letter and a few photos, and I understand this was distributed to the board members prior to the hearing. And if any member of the public wishes to make public comment, please fill out a speaker slip and approach the podium. Not seeing any. Ms. Gu, do you see any raised hands on Zoom?
Looking at Zoom, I do not see any raised hands at all. Thank you.
This concludes general public comment.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes for the Single Family Design Board for October 24th, 2022. Can we go through those items, please?
Yes. Number 1, 2501 Medcliff Road was continued indefinitely to the Planning Commission for return to full board with comments. 2, 2339 Edgewater Way was continued indefinitely to Planning Commission for return to full board with comments. 3, 229 Vista Del Mar Drive was continued to date certain the Single Family Design Review Board full board meeting of November 30th with comments. Item 4, 2121 Los Tunas Road received project design approval and was continued indefinitely to the SFDB consent with the following conditions and findings. Item 5, 2731 El Prado Road was postponed to date certain of today, November 7th, to the full board. That concludes the meeting minutes.
Okay, hearing no changes or comments, may I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Can I have roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Kalian,
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the consent calendar for October 31st. Can we go through those items, please?
Yes, item A, 1260 Farello Road was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with comments. Item B, 222 Mesa Lane received project design approval and final approval with the condition that the permeable paver be of a traditional style and the following findings. Item C, 58 Via Alicia received project design approval and final approval with findings. That concludes the meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. May I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll move.
I'll second.
All right, could I have a roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kalas,
I abstain. I wasn't present.
okay, Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
okay, Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Kalian.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to today, November 7th. Could we go through those items, please?
Yes, item A, 2219 Anacapa Street received approval of review after final as submitted. Item B, 214 Salida del Sol received final approval with
I
the
have a
following.
correction on the minutes.
Sure.
I was not prompted to, nor did I read the following State Political Reform Act as memorialized in the minutes.
Okay. Kathy, did you note that?
Yes, I will correct that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this item received final approval with the following comment. Item C, 1202 Shoreline Drive received project design approval and final approval with the required findings. Item D, 102 Jorgensen Lane received project design approval with conditions and the required findings. That concludes the meeting minutes.
All right, thank you. Is there since you're here, Ellen, legals, should we review these minutes since Vice Chair Claus hasn't officially read that statement, whatever that was, or can we go ahead and approve it?
Actually, I can enter that particular paragraph without a statement read because if the board member goes to the other side of the table and actually presents something, that's the language that's standard for entering into the minutes. If they recuse themselves and leave the room, or, they don't attend that particular item,
Yeah.
then I can delete that paragraph altogether. But it has to be entered into the minutes for the sole proprietorship.
So you
statement.
just changed the wording that she did not read it, right?
Yes,
Got
exactly.
it. Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right. All right, may I have a motion for approval, please?
I'll make a motion with the amendment that the statement that the vice chair read the following statement be stricken.
I'll second.
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Klaus,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
A motion passes with that one amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, moving on to announcements, requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items, and appeals. Do we have anything of that nature?
Yes, Chair Miller, board members, thank you again for being available to facilitate the upcoming special additional hearing for the Single Family Design Review Board full board hearing. It's on Wednesday, November 30th, and it will begin at 2 p.m. instead of our typical 3 p.m., and it will need to wrap by 5:30, so we're keeping it to 3 items to ensure that we can accomplish that. Also, the SFDB membership and quorum changes will be effective on December 1st. Most notable is the change in number of members from 7 to 5. And they are still actively going through the interview process with City Council, the potential candidates. So there's 2 more opportunities for interviews there. And then potentially we'll have a new person appointed come early December.
Question, so what would quorum be?
So quorum has changed to 3 members.
Just confirming that. Great.
And just to clarify on that, so quorum would be 3 members, and there's no particular makeup of what quorum has to be. So right now, quorum is 4 members, and we have to have a licensed architect as part of that. So again, come December 1st, 3 members would be, we would have a quorum, and there's no, we don't have to have one particular person, and that's really just to not put all the pressure on one particular board member for being at every single hearing. So, but the city council was very adamant about keeping a licensed architect on the board, but the way that they crafted the motion and kind of the guidance that they had was that they wanted ultimate flexibility. So there can be more, up to 3 individuals with professional qualifications or up to 3 members of the public at large. But if you are serving on the public at large, you have to be a city resident. That is one of the criteria that they outlined. So yes, that change will happen. So what that means is there is only one person that, given that Chair Miller is, his term is ending, and after extending it already, there will be, that city council will be on the market for one more recruitment for SFDB.
All right, thank you. So if anyone on this board knows anyone that'd be interested, let them know, please.
And then Chair, I have to step down. I'm part of the project team for the last item. So you'll have to read that sole proprietor
Okay. Item
for the
number,
last one.
item number 5. Okay.
And, Chair Miller, I have to step down for item number 3 as I'm
Okay.
economic conflict of interest. Thanks.
I have to step down for item 2 today, I think it is, because of
Okay.
the, neighborhood proximity issue.
Okay.
So Chair Miller, through you, it sounds like everybody, at least it's like evenly distributed. So we haven't lost quorum on any of the particular projects. So if I could just ask everybody to be here for the rest of for the other items, that would be helpful just for our applicants. And again, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate how stressful it is. And again, all the special meetings that you're doing, and that we've tried to relieve this pressure from you and that's why we're trying to address the membership. So I think that it's going to provide much more flexibility, and it won't be stressful, and we won't be harassing you with emails like, where can checking in on quorum all the time. So again, thank you so much for everything you all do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right. With that, we can move on to our first item, 1414 Santa Rosa Avenue. It's a continued item for concept review. It's an interior remodel, proposal to construct a 386 square foot first floor addition and a 759 square foot second story accessory dwelling unit to the existing 1,524 square foot one-story single unit residence. The project also includes replacement of the existing 400 square foot attached two-car carport and roof deck with a new 476 square foot attached two-car garage and roof deck. The proposed total of 3,238 square feet of development on 11,040 square foot lot is 84% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. The project site is located in the non-appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. Staff hearing officer review and approval of the coastal development permit is required. So no final appealable decision can take place at this hearing. Neighborhood preservation findings will be required when the project is reviewed for project design approval. Project was last reviewed on August 1st, 2022. Welcome. Can we go through the minutes, read in the record, please? And then you
Yes.
can introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
Okay. Comment one, study breaking up, stepping down the massing along the front elevation of the second story. 2, study varying the roof lines along the second story accessory dwelling unit, ADU. Provide existing and proposed plantings around the property in order for the board to understand the screening for the neighbors. Study stepping back the massing along the east elevation. Study the size or layout of the ADU deck to better respect neighbors' privacy or consider a 15-foot guideline from the property line. 6, provide a color and material palette, including the tile, veneer, and locations. 7, provide additional views to neighboring properties. 8, study a plate height reduction of the first and second stories. 9, provide a north-south sites section.
All right, thank you. And Board Member Klein, did you review a video of the project?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, great. All right, thank you. If you'd like to present yourself or introduce yourselves and kind of go through the different items of the minutes and how you address them, that'd be great.
So I'm Mark Buccarelli, the architect.
And pardon my interruption, do you
Sure.
mind speaking into the microphone? And there's a little button at the very bottom that lights up the green light. There you go. And if you could speak in, it helps for members who are tuning in via
Sure.
web.
Mark Buccarelli, architect. Thanks for hearing us today.
Sure.
These are my clients who you met last time. Oh, yeah. So that's the rendering that we had done since the first meeting. And so we started with pushing out the lower floor 18 inches so that we broke up the mass and created another little eyebrow roof, and also introduced a more formal entry rather than walking around the side of the garage and burying the entry. So now it's a little bit more of a feature.
You can, you're
yeah.
welcome to use the computer.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
probably me, a hand drafter I'm used to paper and pencil, but welcome to the new age. So, yeah, if you can, I'm trying to be sympathetic. If you want to scroll or whatever you need to do to.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think a lot of the points are right here in the rendering.
Okay.
We did discuss with the adjacent neighbor on this side. So currently, the existing carport is 6 feet offset from the property line. And talked to the neighbors, they're okay with 7 feet from property line to where the deck starts, even though the city is 15, and we're proposing 9.5 feet. So there's this lower eyebrow roof with some fin walls that screen off the view of the deck from the neighbor. We did get a full survey done, and we're showing the existing landscape. And really the only new landscape that we're proposing is permeable pavers that take you from the end of the auto court starting here to the secondary door, entry door, hidden in the back here. But would like to keep all this auto court in asphalt if possible. We introduced some tile wainscot here, decorative. Did some arched windows as a motif. And what else? We will do 100% downlighting. We also reduced the plate height at the first floor from 10 feet to the 9. Kept the 9 feet at the second floor, but we'll also do some vaulting at the second floor. And as far as the rear neighbor, concern about the windows, so we did the required site section, and at the rear property line, the little retaining wall here is actually 34 inches, not 3 feet, but the fence is 6'2". So the sight line is a little bit higher up here, and because the owners prefer to keep standard windows, standard sill height. We can meet egress on the other side, on the front side, but they still prefer a conventional height window, and it doesn't seem to really be intruding, based on the sight line. And here you could also see the plate heights revised. Dark metal roof. And I think those are all the points. Unless you guys want to add in anything.
No, just feedback is.
Okay, all right.
We actually just want to put, we did reduce, so we had originally thought 10.
Can you
I'm sorry. We had originally thought 10 feet on the. We had originally thought 10 feet on the second story, and then we took that down to 9. So it was a 2-foot overall reduction, 1 foot on the top, 1 foot on the bars, right?
Okay, great, thank you. All right, bring it back. Did we get any public comment?
Thanks, Chair Miller. Ms. Gu, can you please switch to my screen? Sure. Thanks. Board members, we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, and I'm not seeing anyone in attendance for oral public comment. So, Ms. Gu, do you see any raised hands on Zoom for this item?
Actually, for this particular item, I do not see any raised hands at all. Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify that, if you are attending on Zoom and you wish to make oral public comment on this item, you can do so by selecting the raise your hand icon, and we can call upon you and unmute yourself. Any raised hands now?
No,
Okay.
not at all. Thank you.
This concludes public comment.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kolas, do you have any questions, please?
Let's see. I do. Could we see I think it would be the east elevation, the east exterior elevation, please? I'm trying to understand how the fins, okay, so you have 2 I'll call them wing walls that come out, and then you have a brow that dies back into a plaster parapet or guardrail there? Is that what happens?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you know what the size is of the tile that you're proposing? It's a Walter Zanger or equal, and so I just don't know if that's like, is that a 4x4 tile?
It's
or-
12 by 12.
It's a 12 by 12 tile, okay. And I know this is just concept review, but do you have a sense of how that would be introduced to the plaster or how it would relate to the plaster?
Yeah, I mean, there should be a flashing,
Okay.
yeah, like maybe a copper flashing that goes over it.
Okay, so you don't imagine that the tiles flush, you are imagining that it will sit proud of the face of the
Yeah.
plaster, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if we could go back to, I guess, the site plan and the site section. Okay, is it possible to zoom in at all on the carport or the deck area? Okay, great. Okay, so you're saying that the existing carport is 6 feet away
Yes.
from the property line, but you're pulling that easterly wall in a westerly direction so that it'll be 9.5 feet?
So we're still keeping the the garage wall at 6 feet, but at the deck level, it's
Okay.
9.5. So
Okay.
that's where the little eyebrow roof and then the fin walls
That's
come
where
into
the
play.
fin is, okay, thank you for clarity.
Yep.
Um,
The general feeling last time was that the deck was too big, and so we're also, minimizing it.
Okay. And then if we could look at the site section that you were
Sure.
so kind to cut. Okay, so you noted that this clarifies that there's no privacy concerns for, I guess it's the northerly neighbor. And so I'm just trying to understand that. So the lower dashed line that you have would be an eye-level sight line over the top of the existing fence, is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. And what is the use between that fence and the south wall of the northerly neighbor? Is that their front yard, their backyard?
That's their backyard.
Yeah.
That's their backyard.
Okay. So it looks like they would be shielded when they're standing in close proximity to the fence, but the further they get away from it or closer they get to their house, the more it would be possible for somebody to see in that yard. Is that right?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay. And then can you explain to me what the upper dashed line is demonstrating?
Okay, so that would be eye level from the neighbors, standing at their window, looking back up
Okay.
to the subject.
Okay, so the lower one is from the subject parcel looking at the neighbor, and the upper line is vice versa?
Yeah.
Okay. Those were the only questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
Yes. Can you go back through your site context photos, neighborhood compatibility? I know you're kind of high up on the street. But if you can just review your context photos for neighborhood compatibility, that would help me. And I think it's a definite improvement from the last submittal, so thank you. Headed down the Spanish Mission, yes. Sorry, those are comments. Okay, I'm just reviewing them, I guess. I'm just looking. Is there any way we can zoom in on the aerial? So,
I was gonna ask if you can get a Google, Heidi's really good at getting the Google map of the aerial. That's a good picture, wow.
And Mr. Chair, through you and to other board members, generally we don't allow Google images to be taken because the development can change, or if the Google image isn't, the street view isn't up to date, there could be a new house there where there wasn't before. So I just, in terms, that's why we always generally ask the applicant to bring in separate site photos to be able to understand what's happening
So-
immediately.
So it's just for context, but it's definitely not official, so.
If I can make
Of course.
a brief comment here, is that from Santa Rosa Avenue, looking up the almost 200 feet of that driveway, the property is practically invisible.
Right,
It cannot be seen.
yeah.
But to the point, and at least importantly, the folks at 1406 that you see immediately to the east of that, they're the ones that had the objection to the deck. And as we see when we look at that deck, it is truly an eyesore. Their main objection was not, looking over into their property. It was them looking at the eyesore of that deck. And when we spoke to them, we let them know it's 6 feet now, and they literally said they were okay with 7 feet. And if we just redid the deck, because it's so awful, and that's the plan. And then, as Mark has expressed, it's going to be 9.5 feet in, not just 7.5
Got it.
feet. So I'm not an expert at it, obviously, but from a compatibility standpoint, it's virtually invisible from the street.
Oh.
The lady at 1422, when she looked at it, and I talked to her, where the ADU is going to be, it's not going to impact her view at all. It'll be behind the existing tree that you can see on the west side. So I just wanted to interject that.
okay, thank you. You were talking about the northern neighbor above, right? I mean, because the major concern is, yes, the deck and that adjacent neighbor, but you've talked to the neighbor above and on all sides.
I talked to the neighbor on 1422. There's been no objection from Kirk, the man who lives at 1412. 1406, they're okay with it, and we're going beyond what they had asked for. But to the point of the neighbor at 1407, no, we have not talked to them. They were here, I think, at the last meeting and expressed their opinion on that. And hopefully, right now, the deck is further toward them than what the proposed ADU would be in terms of just viewability of their backyard. So hopefully we've addressed that, but any questions you have?
Yeah, no, thank you. And the site's heavily landscaped as well, so understood. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arkaling, do you have any questions, please?
I do. So how would you, I appreciate the additional details that you brought to this meeting. How would you describe the current architectural style and this new proposed style? I'm seeing you switch to the from the Tesla roof to standing seam metal. I'm seeing this tile veneer spec, arched openings.
It's, kind of similar to what we started with, doing the massing, getting the 18-inch offset, and, got more specific about the garage door and the radius motif. But we had the white stucco before, and the railing. Previously, we had a Romeo and Juliet just guardrail at this window with a slider, and but the owners just wanted a conventional window. The bracketed entry is new, and that was something that they had seen on another home, that they liked that idea.
Well, like, maybe to clarify, like, would you describe this as like a Mediterranean-inspired California? I'm just trying to understand how would you define it?
Yeah, a little eclectic, kind of what you said, California, Spanish, Mediterranean.
Excuse me.
Yeah. I like the idea of the decorative tile, that even though the aesthetic might be kind of proto-modern, but I like the tile being a little bit of a surprise, but it's also, something that you see in the architecture around here.
Have you considered a Spanish tile roof in lieu of the stainless?
Well, we were just talking about that, and the neighbor on this side has the true Spanish tile, and it's in really bad shape. And we were, speculating just about if it's just the microclimate or maintenance. There's also a lot of staining on the stucco. And it just, doesn't look good. That's not to say that it couldn't work here. But for now, they opted for the metal.
And then my last question would be, I do appreciate you like putting the full image of the proposed tile that you're thinking about considering on using. What made you, what drove you to do a tile veneer all the way across the front elevation rather than maybe a feature element around the entry?
Yeah, we talked about that too. And tile ain't so great around, a radius top. At least I'm not crazy about it. So if it was a flat top front door, then I would say, yeah, bring it up and punch out the entry. Yep, I like that.
That's all I have, thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, just continuing with the tile question, was there any neighborhood context for the tile selection? Any neighbors that have a similar style or tile similar to that? You had an image that you kind of were drawing from as well. Just curious if there was any others.
Yeah, where is that guy? Yeah, this was a house that they liked. I mean, here the tile is radiused, but I just personally just don't like the way it gets broken up. But there's a crazy house here with the decorative tile. I mean, I'm sure there's more than one crazy house like that. But yeah, that was some of the inspiration.
Okay, could you go to the site plan too?
Mm-hmm.
Apologies if you already walked us through this, but can you kind of just walk through the property line of what the plant material is like on your side and then the neighbor's side, just so we're clear on the fact that there is privacy?
Oh, well, there's just quite a bit of palm trees all the way around, and other than the removal of this one lone one here that we need for the proper transportation department backup, we're really keeping everything else. And the only new hardscape is, like I say, these permeable pavers that would take you to the secondary exit back here.
So along that, where the permeable pavers are, what's the plant material along that side of the property line?
There's an existing concrete paving that swoops in here, kind of like this. I'll go to here's the existing. So it's kind of an octopus kind of shape that comes back here. And, you know, we'd get rid of all this and just tidy it up with, you know, something better.
So along that property line, on the neighbor side, is there a hedge or plant material?
This side?
Mm-hmm.
There's some trees.
There's
On this side.
palm trees along that side, and then over on the side of on the neighbor's side of the fence, there's kind of this vine and vegetation that's growing up even further. So we're above the 6-foot fence. It goes another about 18 inches to 2 feet at some point over.
Got it. Okay, that was what I was looking for. And then do you have a permeable paver spec at this point, or selection?
No, but it would meet stormwater requirement department.
Those are all my questions. Thanks.
If I could, Board Member Klein, as you see the existing with the impervious cement there to the north and then also to the east, we propose, the proposal is roughly the removal of 900 square feet of impervious. And then with our net addition to the house with the, 2 feet on the deck and then the additional roof space, we should come up with probably what is a 400 square foot net reduction in impervious surface. And yeah, the fences, it's just the nature of that the driveway to the west is elevated a little bit, maybe about a foot. So literally the fence that's there now, I cannot see over it. It's probably between 7 to 8 feet tall. And there is a hedge along the entire south edge of the property, except for the driveway, that might be, as you stand there, maybe 10 feet tall in terms of, privacy for the south side. On the east side, we've addressed that they're okay with it, plus that fence is probably 6.5 to 7. The rear and then the west side.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. I had a question and I forgot the question, so we'll move on to comments until I remember my question. So Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
I do. Could we look at the rendering, please? Okay. Rendering is really helpful. And I agree with Board Member Anderson that this is a great improvement over the last iteration that we saw. I think the idea of popping out the first floor really helps in terms of breaking up that massing. I'm struggling a little bit with the tile wainscot. That's not to say that it can't be successful. I think it could, but I think it depends on the selection of the tile and how it is installed, how it's detailed. So I would encourage you to consider whether that's really going to act as more of a plinth on the house or a wainscot that sits proud of the face of the wall, or whether that's just flush with the plaster. It seems like you would be doing some plaster work anyhow, so there might be an opportunity to flush the face of that tile out with the plaster so that you don't have to introduce a flashing piece that's visible there. And you may want to consider something that's a little bit more handmade than the tile that you've proposed. I think that the entry element is helpful. In general, I think I'm kind of struggling with what Mr. Arakelian might be struggling with also, which is kind of this blend of the contemporary and the Mediterranean. It's kind of like, what does it want to be, right? So how do we push it in one direction or another? And I think there's some really simple things that could happen that would make this feel more authentic, without maybe adding too much cost. So I'm just going to kind of enumerate what a couple of those things are that I'm seeing. So the kickers that are supporting the overhang at the entry, they seem diminutive and they seem too long to me. Like, generally speaking, those want to be at more of a 45-degree angle and more stout if you want to push this in the Mediterranean direction, which I think would be easy to do. I think there needs to be some sort of resolution to the overhang at the garage, and that might be resolved. I can think of a couple different ways that you could resolve that where it would work in a Mediterranean context. Lintels, things of that nature, would make it feel structurally correct. And rather than having the fins, I'm wondering if you don't just step down that wall condition there with some sort of parapet, or just let the brow read. Sometimes those idiosyncrasies actually kind of are what make, classic Mediterranean architecture. Those are generally my comments. I am concerned about the sightlines with the northerly neighbor, and I think it would be helpful when you return if there was some sort of documentation or a letter, something from the neighbor on the north side that lets us know that you have communicated with them and that they're generally okay with what's being proposed. Because without substantial screening there, I think there might be some privacy issues from the second floor for them. I think those are really all of my comments. Thank you.
All right, Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions or comments, please?
Comments.
Yes,
Let's see
comment.
if I can get that clear. Agree with Leslie's comments. I mean, neighborhood compatibility, yes, with the headed in the Mediterranean or Mission. Agree, though, that the design, a definite design style with consistency needs to be studied further. It's a part of our guidelines. So yes, Leslie brought up the entry. I don't think 18 inches is enough. Typically 3 feet gives you a little more definition. Yeah, and the wainscot with the metal roof, they're just more study would be greatly appreciated. But I mean, it's compatible which direction it's headed, just needs a little more definition, if that makes sense. The size, the 85 FAR, I think all the size and the massing of the structure is fine. And that deck was already there of that size, a little large, and the quality materials is good with the metal roof and all. So those are my general comments. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Arakelian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. So I do appreciate you providing much more information, as well as the 3D rendering as well. Appreciate the reduction in the plate height. Believe the proposed FAR and the massing is supportable per our guidelines, and believe the other board members have spoken to all my other comments. So that's all I have. Thanks.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, I would agree with all the other board members. I think the mass bulk and scale is appropriate. I aesthetically think the style is moving in the right direction. I would agree that aesthetically the tile feels out of scale as well as the brackets. I would restudy that, and that visioning image that you had for the neighborhood feels more compatible and aesthetically appropriate, with tile more around the entry or just maybe a step riser, just studying that to feel a little more traditional. I recommend showing and calling out the existing plant material. There's just, trunks called out. If you do a circle around the existing plant material, it's clear that that's a tree, and calling out what's in the neighbor area is helpful as well, just to be clear. And then also with the permeable paver spec, I'd like to see something more traditional in style that goes with the architecture.
All right, thank you. I remember the question. I'd like to see your floor plans, please. The first and second floor plans. Excuse me. Okay, that's the first floor. Okay, and the second floor? Okay, so, several things. Excuse me, the Spanish colonial vernacular, there's a certain look to it, and I don't know if you studied George W. Smith. Everyone talks about him in this town, but there are several architects, and there's a certain discipline. Do you have a picture of your inspiration, that front elevation? I'd like to look at that, please. Go to that, and I'll kind of explain some things here that I see kind of sticking out. So if you look at this house, you notice that the window placements, they stack. And that's because it's sort of implying that the house is made of stone or heavy timber or adobe. And back in those days, everything was, mortise and tinden or stacked upon. Whereas your house doesn't quite do that. The windows are all kind of scattered. I would nix the segmented windows on the second floor. I think that's just kind of strange looking. I'd make those a flat top. I would also try to stack your windows. That would make a huge difference. See how they are stacked on this bottom elevation, on bottom house that you show, whereas on yours, they're not. Now, you may not be able to, but that's okay. Spanish colonial is forgiving in terms of it not stacking, but those two segmented arched windows on the top, I think, don't look right. I think a flat top would work a lot better. I also recommend that you drop the top plate of the second floor to 8 feet, because you're going to have a volume ceiling. I know you think that's not going to be a lot, but that actually is going to give you a lot of headspace. I think that'll make a huge difference in terms of the scaling of the house. The other thing is on the garage where you have the roof deck. I think this is something Vice Chair Kloss was touching on. It's kind of strange. Yeah, if you look over on the right where you've got an extra wide parapet to cover that little fan roof. Now you're suggesting taking that out so you can actually see the slope of the roof. That might be kind of fun to look at. I agree with her. Sometimes you do little quirky things. Spanish colonial homes are based or inspired by the Andalusian homes, which were built by farmers in the countryside of Spain. They weren't built by architects. They were built by farmers, and generally speaking, the first floor was where all their farm animals were housed. So in a sense, you're kind of using the garage is where you would store your farm animals. So I'm just saying that as a context in terms of where this is all coming from. But the roof deck, I think, yeah, it's a huge improvement to what you had before. But I'm just kind of like, we want to study the reasoning of why things were placed the way they were. I think the standing metal seam roof and that color, I really appreciate this sample that you have down here, because I love how that looks. That's a great look. And I can see that working on this house. Now also notice, however, that the tile only surrounds the front door. That might be something you want to look at, just surrounding the front door, framing out that, as opposed to the entire bottom of the house. It kind of reminds me of a bathroom when you do the entire house like that. It kind of looks like an interior finish as opposed to an exterior. But that's just kind of what I'm thinking of when I see that. So I think those are my comments at this time. But otherwise, it is an improvement. And you do have a little leeway in terms of the fact that it's back in the it's a interior lot, so no one's gonna see it. But I think you're gonna see it, and I think if you do a little of these things, you're gonna really enjoy the look. It's gonna be, you'll appreciate it, I think, and more of a feel of the Spanish colonial genre with that kind of roof system. Anyway, those are my only comments.
Can I have one go backsy?
Of course.
This,
One more what?
a go backsy?
Sure.
The other thing that I noticed on the sample, and I was remiss in mentioning this, is that in your aesthetic sample, is that it appears as though there's lintels over the square or the rectangular windows at the top. I can't tell if that's actually a lintel or if it's just part of the reveal, but it looks like it's a lintel that extends past the jamb. It might be nice to introduce that in a couple spots, maybe on some of the smaller windows or something. And another way of resolving the entry might just be to pad the entry and have a recessed architrave condition, and that would allow you to return the tile wainscot back to the principal wall, if that makes sense. It might help to resolve that tile wainscot issue.
All right, thank you. Did you have something you wanted to say? Of course, please.
So on this, so you're talking about doing a angle here?
Well, kind of, you don't,
I mean, the whole point of the wing walls is, to give the neighbors some screening.
okay,
They're, these guys are probably gonna have a better deck than the 50-year carport deck that the neighbors have been, suffering with. So I'm just asking if you're talking about, angling this to just receive the shed roof, then, that kind of defeats the purpose of
yeah,
the
okay.
screening.
Give me some clarification when you say more privacy for the neighbor. How does that provide more
Well,
privacy?
I think their objection with the current carport is that it's unsightly. And I'm sure the new deck will look better.
Yes,
Yeah, but I think it's still, they still want, I'm guessing,
well, the two
some
walls,
privacy.
those two wing walls you have sticking out, it's like, that's kind of weird. I don't quite know the logic between why you have two wing walls sticking out over the roof there that don't function as a balustrade or a guardrail. They just kind of stick out.
Well, it receives the eyebrow roof,
Okay.
to have it frame into something. So I guess I could see angling it, but then this part, would you say that would become railing also? Or?
I would get rid, well,
or
see, if
keep it solid?
I'd get rid of it and just have the roof be the prominent aspect of that. I'll leave this up to you,
The other thing,
study it and then come back with your new design and, we'll review it.
the other thing is the top to bottom, this window is centered on the entry.
Yes.
This is centered. This gets kind of chaotic, but these are stacked. So, I
Well-
could see maybe this one, conjoining with this one.
To give you the benefit of the doubt, gave you my suggestions, how I think it would aesthetically look appropriate, and it's kind of based on looking at the house below, because you see there's no rounded tops, but let's don't go into a discussion, I'll let you study it and explore it, but I think aesthetically, I'd say it makes a huge improvement if you don't have segmented arched windows on the top floor, it just would work better. It'll give it a
But
more
would you
balanced
agree
look.
that this stacking is okay?
The stack, yeah, well, that's what my point was, if you looked at the bottom house, all the windows are stacked.
But
Based on-
isn't that what's
Okay,
happening?
let's not go into a debate. I'll just let you, as the talents as an architect to work, based on our recommendations, what you can do to study that approach.
And Chair Miller, board members, if you're ready to craft some comments, this project is here to forward on to the staff hearing officer. So if you could include comments regarding neighborhood preservation findings, such as like size, bulk, and scale, and neighborhood compatibility.
Okay, thank you. So with that being said, would someone like to craft a motion, please?
Before we do that, can we decide whether we think this is ready to go to the staff hearing officer?
I would like to see him come back one more time.
I would agree. I don't know about the other board members.
Mr. Chair, through you, I don't know if you heard Mr. Bauman,
I
who's
did.
here as a case planner, but I will speak on his behalf. It sounds like his recommendation, and I think we're in agreement that it might be best to come back before the staff hearing officer reviews it.
Okay,
It's just a recommendation.
all right. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Oh,
Oh, did you go? Go.
He was really anxious.
Got the Jeopardy button. Go for it.
And part of my interruption, and I know the motion maker is about ready to say something, but it also might be helpful if you feel like you need additional photographs to understand. I know that there were questions about clarity on some of the landscaping and what was happening around the property. That additional photos might be beneficial to include in your motion.
Okay. I would like to make a motion for this project to return to the full board definitely with the following comments. The board generally finds the proposed FAR to be supportable. To study exterior building elements and materials in order to define a more apparent and consistent architectural style that is compatible with the neighborhood, including but not limited to the use of architectural materials, the amount and location of tile veneer along the front elevation, the garage overhang, use of brackets, the shape and placement of fenestrations along the front elevation, the use of additional lintels, and the use and placement of wing walls. For the applicant to provide a transition detail from the tile wainscot to the building plaster. For the applicant to review plantings and privacy with the northerly neighbor per our good neighbor guidelines. To reduce the plate height to 8 feet at the second floor, and to provide additional photos of landscape screening, particularly along the north or particularly at all elevations. And that's all I have for now.
I'll second that, and I'd like to request that we add a recommendation that the 2 arch-topped windows on the second floor be rectilinear.
So I had left, just a discussion, I had left that out because I wasn't exactly sure if, I kind of want to leave it open for them to study.
Okay, I'm okay seconding the motion as it stands.
So I just want to make sure, is it the feeling or recommendation that the arched windows on the second story be replaced by rectangular ones?
That's my recommendation.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to, I
That's
know
my
you guys have
recommendation.
said that, but I want to make sure
Yeah.
that I understand.
I think
Thank you.
Does the maker of the motion want to add lowering the second story plate height to 8 feet with? Oh, you did? So can you speak the first part? You were talking about the architectural style. I think we were accepting of this style, but you said something that wasn't clear.
Oh, I was speaking upon the use of just to study the use of building elements and materials to create a more consistent style, whether it's the aesthetic sample that we're seeing on the screen or if that makes sense.
Well, it seems, I'm sorry, I apologize. It seems a little too vague for me. I think we need to be a little more specific in exactly what we're asking in terms of what we want for the architectural points of the house. we agree with the style. We recommend that the windows on the second floor be rectilinear. We recommend that the tile wainscot on the first floor be studied to have a different approach to it. We recommend that the decking area be studied in terms of those wing walls, you know, something like that. I'm just,
So are you suggesting an amendment?
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that, but I would just ask if staff can just repeat the motion.
Ms. Gu, can you repeat comment number 2, please?
Okay, the first statement was finds the proposed FAR to be supportable. Study the exterior building element for compatible style elements such as materials and items along the front elevation, the shape along the front elevation, the use of lintels and wing walls.
Can I make an attempt here? I think, are we all generally in agreement that we like the aesthetic sample shown?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
what are you referring to? What is that
To-
example?
That
Yes,
image that they have.
yes.
So in an effort to try to provide them with direction, I would call that a traditional Spanish colonial with the exception of the roof material. And I'm wondering if that would help provide direction to the applicant.
I'm fine adding that to the motion, or if you would like to start over with a new motion, I'm fine with that too.
Can I ask a question real quick? I mean, is it possible to just agree to get rid of the wing walls now, get rid of the wainscoting, and then make the windows rectilinear, and then move on to the staff hearing? If we just said we just do all that now, or do we have to come back?
We're fine with that.
I think those are wonderful suggestions. However, we can't grant that until we actually see the drawings, so we'd have to come back. But yes, and I would say recommend lowering the plate height 8 feet on the second floor with your volume ceiling. It'll still be great. And I think we're saying way too much here, so
Can I ask a question?
hold on.
So, pardon my interruption.
Yeah, we're in the-
Mr. Chair, it sounded like Vice Chair Kalas had mentioned an idea, a statement, and I'm assuming that could be an amendment to the motion as a consideration for the motion maker. Is that accurate?
Yes.
To the motion maker, I think.
Yes, that's fine to add.
Okay, Kathleen, could you read the motion again, please?
Okay, I'm going to try my best. Okay, continued indefinitely to full board with comments. The board finds the proposed FAR to be supportable. Study the exterior building elements to find a compatible style elements such as materials along the front elevation, the shapes along the front elevation, and use of lintels and wing walls. Provide, I think it was photos from the walls, the wing wall to the plaster element. Reduce the plate height 8 feet at the second floor to 8 feet at the second floor. Reduce, I think, I wasn't sure what you wanted reduced along all the elevations. Was that,
Provide additional photos of landscape screening at all elevations.
okay, provide photos,
And
okay.
then comment 3, Ms. Gu, I believe
Yes.
was applicant shall provide a transition detail for the wainscot. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's the motion. May I have a second, please?
I'll second, and apologies, can I also add that the permeable pavers should be studied to be a more traditional style when you bring a spec?
I would support adding that.
Okay, thank you. May I have roll call, please?
Okay, here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kalas,
Yes.
Board Member Akilian,
Yes.
okay, Board Member Anderson,
Yes.
Board Member Klein.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. It's
All right, thank you
continued
very much.
indefinitely.
Well, I still had a question.
I'm happy to follow up with you, and the case planner can get in touch for any follow-up questions that you may have.
Okay, moving on to item number 2, 628 Mission Ridge Roads. This is a continued item for project design approval. Proposal to construct a new 1,998 square foot single unit residence and a 426 square foot attached garage. The project includes a 93 square foot accessory space, a new 800 square foot special accessory dwelling unit with solar panels and one uncovered parking space, a sun deck with swimming pool and hot tub. New hardscape and landscape, parks and recreation approval was granted for the removal of one pepper tree located on the front setback. The proposed total of 3,317 square feet of development on an 18,772 square foot lot is 75% of the maximum guideline Florida lot area ratio. Again, project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings, hillside design district, and slope lot findings and grade findings are required. The project was last reviewed on November 22nd, 2021. Could we read into the record the minutes from the previous meeting, please?
Chair Miller, I'm going to step down due to proximity issues to my residence.
Okay, thank you. And we've run out of water cups. Yes.
Okay, so the past meeting minutes here. Number 1, the project fits within the neighborhood. 2, the project fits within the size, bulk, and scale of the neighborhood in that its architecture and materiality are aesthetically pleasing. No significant trees are being removed. 4, there is significant screening from the neighbors, which is respectful. 5, no public views are being impeded. 6, the board anticipates being able to grant project design approval at the next meeting. 7, the applicant shall provide a landscape plan.
All right, thank you very much. If you'd like to present your project, pretty simple minutes. Just, I guess, make sure the details match what you've what you presented before.
Certainly, Board. My name is Jerry Roche. I'm the architect for this project. The owners and clients are not with us today, and the landscape architect is not with us today either, so I'll do my best to present her work as well. But would you like me to give an overall presentation? It's been a year
Sure.
since you've last seen this.
Yeah,
so-
probably a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
What this project is as you read, a 2,000 square foot, plus or minus main house with, up here you have a 800 square foot ADU, special ADU. You have a small accessory building which houses pool equipment and a little bathroom for the pool, and then the pool is right here as well. The last time you saw this, I'm not sure if I should switch back and forth. Let me just do this really quickly. There was a subtle change to the ADU and how this building interacts with the ADU, and so we've had to adjust that because of some regulations about attaching buildings to ADUs. And then there have really been no changes to this main house, only just subtle things with parking and a little roof edge change to this started over here. So let me switch back to the main drawings. The FAR for the project comes in about 75%, so we're well under the allowable. And here you have pictures of the site. The site is, actually let me go back one, yeah, okay. The site basically is 2 terraces. You can see if you have Mission Ridge Road down, let's see, let me orient myself. Yeah, Mission Ridge Road is down here to the north. And then the driveway, common driveway for this property and this property come up alongside the property line here. You have a main terrace right here where there's the main house, the 2,000 square foot main house. You have a oak woodland in between with a slope. And then you have the location where the pool will be and the ADU will be down here. And you can see the photos of the site. So there's really nothing on the site now except for this shared common driveway. This house right here is the adjacent property next door. And then from the street view from Mission Ridge, you can see the profile of the current house that's to the right, and then our proposed house right here. And these trees, there's some oaks in front, which will also screen this, and then you're seeing the oak woodland behind as well. And then the common driveway, there's very little proposed changes, a little bit of widening that we have to do for the fire department on the driveway going up. And then you can see down here some of the adjacent, or not adjacent, but some of the neighboring houses and how we tried to match aesthetic style and work with the context of the neighborhood a little bit. And these are renderings of our project. Okay, so from here, as you drive up the driveway, you'll see the side view and the materials and the massing of the house. The materials are fairly simple, natural materials of natural stained wood, a mildly gray stucco, smooth coat stucco, some black metal fascia and roof edge and brake metal around the windows and metal window doors. And then we're using bits of rusted steel just to kind of tie the wood and the metal back together again a little bit. And then in terms of pavers, we've got segmented concrete pavers. And here's the window looking out towards Mission Ridge Road. It's kind of the main space looking out. Garage door. Here's some common dining area. The roof that we had to cut back because of the property line proximity is this roof right here, this roof edge. So we've taken the roof as it was projecting out with an overhang, and then we've just brought that back towards the edge. So that's one of the few changes that you're looking at from this time to the last time. And then the pool deck as well. This is that little accessory building and how it's detached from the accessory dwelling unit, but it's also connected via this trellis structure as well. So, and then here's the survey. You can see the two terraces and the oak woodland in between. And then just looking at mechanical units and making sure we had sound ordinance stuff taken care of. We were asked to do biological reports, and so we had a biologist, and we also have an arborist, and they've come up with some recommendations during construction to help preserve the oak woodland, and that's all been covered within our reports and analysis that we've gone through over the last year. And then we have the open space that's here, and here you have the footprint of the lower house, and you have the pool and the ADU. So this is our site plan with some slope calculation. We did do a slope reduction because we have a steep slope here, so we have a 5-foot reduction in front setback that we were allowed for that. And we have the floor plan for the main house. So here's your garage space right here, and then a door going onto an entry porch, and then you have your entry vestibule and your living room, kitchen, dining clustered together with views out to the mountains beyond. And master bedroom down here, a couple steps up, just because there's this slope, pretty steeply sloping, and we wanted to minimize cut as much as we could. So we added some stairs here, and these two bedrooms are up a small amount of grade to this patio right here. And then as you come in, you have some stairs which take you up to the ADU and the pool deck above. And then here's the stairs coming up, and then you arrive at the pool deck and the ADU and these little accessory buildings to which are loosely connected to the ADU. And then the roof plan. So the roof plan is fairly simple. You have flat roofs here with a parapet around it, which is that brake metal parapet. Here's the chimney with the Corten steel on it. And then it's metal roofing sloping down both sides. Actually, it's down to a valley right here, and then it'll drain out on the side there. This is a parapet up top of the ADU. We have a parapet roof and then flat sloping single slope roof back here with parapet flat roofs on either side there. And then elevations. So you can see how the elevations kind of come together with the double sloped roof and the parapeted around the garage area. And again, and this is the ADU up above. Some trellis, that trellis kind of casting shadows on the glass. And the material choices we've got, let me go back to this. So the material choices are natural wood, stucco and brake metal, the standing seam metal, concrete with gravel brake joints, anodized aluminum glass, window systems with large glass, and louvered wood doors at the areas that can allow for that, up at the mechanical room and the bathroom out there. And then we have the landscape plan. And if you zoom in on the landscape plan a little bit, let me see if I can do that.
Apologies, Jerry, can you move the mic a little closer, please?
Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Is that better? Okay. So as we just go through her plant selections, on the Mission Ridge North Slope, which would be this slope right here, you can see they're mostly low-lying plants, natives, and that's much of that's gonna be tucked underneath these few oaks across here. And then around the house, you can see these are the plant selections she has for around the house. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the name, sorry, I would butcher it. Oh, there we go. And then slope between the house and the ADU. So this is the woodland area that's in the slope between there. And you can see again, low-lying natives. I keep switching pages, sorry. And then around the pool deck, a little bit more decorative, a little more color around the pool deck. And then materials for the ground covers and planting joints. And then we were asked to do some site sections showing the grading and how that ties the two pieces of the property together. So our cut and fill is kind of, it's a little bit hard to read on this, but we've shown kind of where the cut and fill is going to be. Now we will follow up with civil drawings for all the civil work, but this is our work right here. And you can see kind of the natural grade. So if we, let me zoom back out a little bit. There we go. So this section right here is the bottom one down here. And you can see we have the most kind of cut along here. You can see how we've had to cut to allow the house to sit here. This is that little portion of raised house just to kind of minimize the cut as much as we could. Here's the pool. Now this next section is up on this side, I believe, number 4 up here, or number 2 up here rather. And we have the ADU, the pool, and then this is down by the driveway and in the entry along this edge where we're doing just a minor amount of fill right here. And then as we go down to this next section, here we're cutting through the ADU and the main house and the pool, and you can kind of see how this cuts down. There's a natural, or there's already an existing wall that's cut through here too, so a lot of this slope has already been cut back over the past, I don't know how many years, 50 years or something like that. And then our last section in this direction shows a little bit more cut through here too, where we're creating this patio space. And then cuts going the other direction as well. Going in this direction, this is probably the most cut right here through this portion of the house. This is up at the ADU as well. So, and those are our drawings. That's our presentation.
All right, thank you very much. Did we get any public comment?
Thanks, Chair Miller. Ms. Gu, can you please switch to my screen? We did not receive any written correspondence for this item. And for those on Zoom wishing to make oral public comment, please select the raise your hand icon and staff can call on you, and then you can unmute yourself. And while we're waiting for those on Zoom, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to make oral public comment on this item, please fill out a speaker slip located next to the back door. You can bring it up to us. You would have 2 minutes to speak. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience. Ms. Gu, do you see any raised hands on Zoom?
No, I do not see any raised hands on Zoom at this time. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Back to you.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
I did review the videos, the drawings, the minutes, and the agenda for the record.
Great.
Lengthy process. So, no, I am not going to reinvent the wheel. I think it's a great project, enhancing the neighborhood, and the drawings display very well what you're doing. So compatibility, massing, all of our checklists to me is taken care of. Thank you.
I guess that was your comment.
Sorry, comment.
That's okay. Board Member Kaleen, do you have any questions, please?
I do. Can we confirm the plate height at the main residence and if, what they are?
The plate height at the main residence. Let me look and see if I can figure that out for you on the fly here, because I don't know if I have a drawing that specifically shows that. The elevations?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, so right now we are at the garage. So we have 11 feet to the garage, to the top of the parapet of the garage.
So
And
it's 10 foot.
Yeah,
ceiling height?
yeah, there's about probably 18 inches in there, so it's probably more like it's a pretty tight sandwich in this spot. This is the tightest little sandwich piece that we can get, and we were trying to match lines. So if you look at this line right here, this line carries all the way around the project to this line, and that's the tightest. Top of roof at this edge, we've got 14 feet 2, so we're probably looking at a 13.2 plate height at this front edge. So we're kind of flexing in between those two numbers.
Okay. And then at the ADU?
Yeah. At the front edge, we have 9 feet 6 to the roof, so again, we're probably looking about 8 feet 6 plate height. Maybe a little bit lower, 8 feet, because we have that parapeted space there. At this top of roof, we're looking at 13 feet, so it'd probably be about a 12-foot plate height at this front edge right here. On the back side, which is closest to the neighbor, well, it'd be the same band, so it'd be about an 8-foot plate height at that back side.
That's all I have for now. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein?
Yeah, could you just confirm the retaining walls are board form concrete? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I can kind of zoom in on some of the imagery that we've got, and let's see if we got a good one here.
Oh yeah, the lower picture.
There's one right there. So we're tying in the board form at the back wall.
And then can you explain what the driveway hardscape and the pool deck hardscape is, material-wise?
The driveway is existing pavers, and I think we had to
Okay.
maintain that because of the ADU parking.
Got it.
The pool deck is going to be a stone or some kind of tile, large format tile. Now, we just got our soils report, geotech, back, and we've got a lot of clay to deal with. So we may be breaking that into segmented, having some kind of
Spaced
joints
gap.
in between there, just to kind of keep that slab a little bit smaller.
Great, okay. Those are all my questions.
All right, thank you. Heidi, Holly, sorry. I'd like to see another Google map, Ariel.
It's not official, Brian.
I know it's off the record or unofficial, but it's basically for residential density I'm looking at. I know.
Yeah, so for the record, the applicant has submitted site photos. This is just for quick reference. The parcel is currently vacant.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Bring it back to comments. Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Well, I made my comments, but I'm in agreement with the previous review, that do have to go through all of our items. Yes, it's compatible with the neighborhood.
You don't have to go through how.
Okay, thank
You're
you.
making a motion, do you?
Thank you.
All right. Okay, thank you. Board Member Kaling, do you have any comments, please?
No comments. I would just, I would just request the maker of the motion to consider, I know they're here for project design approval, but I'd be fine if they come to consent for final.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
All right, Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Just that I think the project is appropriate aesthetically and ready for project design approval.
Okay, now you want my comment. I agree. Who would like to draft a motion, please?
I'll make a motion for the project to get project design approval and continued indefinitely, or 2 weeks, do you?
The project is deemed complete, so if we could continue, how long does the applicant need, just estimated, we need to route to creeks prior to final approval as well. So can we do 4 weeks, 6 weeks estimate
To route to creeks,
to resubmit the project and
as for final,
but they're complete already? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. Disregard, please.
we got a lot of work to do till final.
So I'll continue indefinitely for final to go to consent with the following findings. That the project is compatible with the neighborhood in size, bulk, and scale. And is consistent with the scenic character of the neighborhood. Quality architectural materials are being used in their detailing. No significant trees are being removed. Additional trees are being added, and there's significant screening along the whole property line with existing plant material and new plant material. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected. The good neighbor guidelines regarding privacy, landscaping, noise, and lighting are followed, and no public views are being impacted. The project also works with the natural topography of the site as it steps down in the architecture, as well as the building scale is minimized with the hillside. By minimizing, the project also works with the natural, yeah, we already did this one, the grading, yeah. The grading findings have been met as well. The proposed grading will not significantly increase siltation in or decrease the water quality of streams, and the proposed grading will not cause a substantial loss of the southern oak woodland habitat as the oaks are being protected.
All right, thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, may I have roll call, please?
Here we go. Chairman Miller,
Yes?
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Killian,
Yes.
and Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
And motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Chair Miller, if you could announce the appeal.
Oh, and there is
period.
a 10-day appeal period for your project.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 3. This is a continued item. Project design approval is requested. It's 545 Marina Drive, La Marina Drive. Proposal to demolish an existing 1,730 square foot single unit residence, including a 687 square foot deck and a 135 square foot shed located on the Hillside Design District, and construct a new 3,059 square foot single unit residence with a partial second story and a basement level, a 455 square foot detached garage, 929 square feet of decks. Project includes construction of a new 80 square foot shed, replacement of the existing concrete driveway, associated grading, and hardscape improvements. The proposed total of 3,059 square feet on a 15,925 square foot lot is 70% of the maximum guideline floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings, hillside designs district, and slope lot findings and grading findings are required. The project was last reviewed on May 23rd, 2022. Hello. Could we read into the record the last meeting's minute?
And Chair Miller, I'm going to be excusing myself due to a economic conflict of interest.
All right, thank you.
Number 1, the board generally finds the proposed project is compatible with the neighborhood in terms of size, bulk, and scale. 2, the board appreciated the modest height at which the plate heights are set for the residents and the manner in which the second floor massing is primarily distributed on the westerly side in order to help protect views for adjacent neighbors to the south. 3, the board generally supports the proposed materials, however, consider a more muted color for the plaster or stucco materials. 4, return with 1 or more studies of the more southerly elevation that potentially reduces glazing and a lantern effect for the southerly neighbor. 5, provide a full landscape plan and provide additional stormwater management program information details.
All right, thank you. Welcome. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and tell us how you address those items.
Sure. I'm Dave Mendrow. My firm's NMA Architects. And I'm Dave Mendrow. My firm's NMA Architects, and I'm here on behalf of my clients Stephen Davis and Chris Chiapari. Stephen's with us here. And then I also have Amy Blakemore here to address her landscape design.
Great.
And then Mike Viatoni to address the stormwater, if you have questions on that.
Awesome.
So, how much detail, should I just address the comments and then let you guys ask questions? Does that
Sounds
work?
perfect.
Okay. The first comment that you were pleased with the project in the sense of compatibility with the neighborhood, size, bulk, mass, and scale. What we're proposing today is the same, pretty much the same as last time, but we've actually reduced the size of the project. We've reduced the spaces within the house so that overall there's a 3.5 foot reduction in the width of the house. We've reduced the basement by 30%, and our FAR has reduced from 76% to 70%. The second comment was that the board appreciated the height of the building, the plate heights, and the way we located the second story on the westerly end to preserve the view quarters for the neighborhood. We haven't changed any of that other than we have reduced the width of the building some, as I previously mentioned. Plate heights are still low, exactly the way we showed before. And if you may remember, our existing single-story portion of our house is lower than the existing house that's there now. And our second story is 6 feet higher than the existing house that's there now. So it's a pretty low project. We really focused on that. And then obviously a significant portion of the house is well below the maximum height allowed. The board supported our materials, but asked us to choose a more muted color for the plaster, which we've done. We now have a soft, warm, off-white color for the plaster, whereas before it was a brighter white color in our renderings. You asked us to study the southerly elevation regarding privacy and the potential lantern effect. I'm going to see if I can get to. So we did do a study. We put story poles up and with the heights of 12, 14, and 16 feet. And we found that it was very effective to have trees that screen at the 14-foot level. So this is simulating how the trees will shade the neighbor. The neighbor's house is right here. You can just see the peak of the roof with this proposed landscaping. And Amy will get into detail on that. And then as far as the reducing the glazing, we did, let's see, back here. On the southerly elevation, this is what we proposed before, and this is what we're proposing now. And so we've reduced the glazing because we've reduced the basement, but we've also reduced the glazing in this area of the project significantly. So overall, we've reduced the glazing on the south side of the house by over 25%. And then your last comment was wanting to have a full landscape plan and stormwater management program, and I'll let Amy and Mike present those. So I can just run this for you probably. That might be the means. Let's see. Oh, just as a last shot here, this is our material palette.
Do I push this button?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right.
We can hear you now.
Thank you. You're the only ones. So to just address the comments about the screening, the program required that we get some significant screening between the structures, the new residents and the southerly neighbors, with the height requirements that seem to take care of the view corridor there. It seemed that doing some field-grown olives would be a good match for that, since we can get them in a good size, that 12 to 14 foot size. And actually, if you go down to the next sheet, Dave, I have a photo from a recent job where we pulled in the very same material there. On that lower right-hand side, you can see a gentleman pushing that tree up. It's pretty small, but it's a 14-foot tree that we can get at the time of installation. Thinking that's also important to reduce the disturbance on the slope there as well, so we can get olives that just have a very small root ball, getting that field-grown material. In terms of the overall program, wanting to make sure we have screening around the perimeter of the structure and the property. So we've got a ligustrum hedge specified for on the 3 sides of the property. We're holding it a little bit to the north on the southerly edge, again, to try to just create a little bit of space and buffer for both neighbors along that side. And at the entry along La Marina Drive, we've got a mix of ground cover and upright Arctostaphylos, a couple manzanita varieties that can hold that slope and then provide filtered screening from the street as well on that location. For the majority of the planting around the structure itself, we've got a mix of succulents. Can you go back to the palette? I think that's probably the most instructive. A mix of different succulents, and to reduce the overall water use, we're trying to be very conscientious of holding the slope, minimizing the watering that's going to happen on there, and minimizing the disturbance. So we've come up with a palette of plants that can do that. And then getting some kind of larger scale planting that's down on the south, on balancing on either southwest and southeast corners, some echium and some other kind of large rangier plants that can really get some root material in there and hold that slope, and also keeping the existing pittosporum that's on the lower right-hand corner there. And then providing some more detailed planting up at the areas where there's a lot of activity at the main entry and up against the house. That kind of takes care of the landscape plan. Dave, Mike, did you want to speak to this real quick?
Turn on your,
Hi, I'm Mike Piatoni. I'm the civil engineer for the project. And what we did to deal with stormwater treatment measures that we needed to implement for the project, the original project came in with a proposed concrete driveway and parking areas. So what we did was we swapped that out to a porous driveway and parking area. That also helped us reduce the hardscape, so that we're now matching our proposed hardscape with the existing hardscape to make sure we're not increasing our stormwater runoff to the south. In addition to that, we're required to capture our runoff from the roof and the house, the roof for the garage and the roof for the house, and we're draining that into the area just north of the house into a percolation pit that's approximately 560 square feet, and that's located directly below the porous driveway area.
all right, thank you. Does that conclude your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll bring it back to did we have any public comment, please?
Thanks, Chair Miller. Board members, we did not receive any written correspondence on this item. Ms. Gu, can you please switch to my screen? For those attending on Zoom who wish to make oral public comment on this item, please select the raise your hand icon. Staff will call on you and you can unmute yourself. And while we're waiting for those on Zoom, we did receive 2 speaker slips for those attending in person. So I will call you up one by one. Please approach the podium, press on the base of the mic so it lights up green, and you will have 2 minutes to speak on this item. So first we will hear from Eddie Haug. Huff, sorry about that.
And I'm sorry, push on. Yes. Okay. Nice to see all of you again. And I'm going to say I appreciate your response to all of our concerns, many of our concerns. We have more concerns. That's why we're here today. And the thorough job we've worked with your team to look at and address our concerns that came onto our property. We really appreciate that you did that. And also, of course, we have some more concerns and something else that, a couple of things that came up today regarding the landscape plan and the screening trees. We have an ongoing issue with that retaining wall. I have a photo of the retaining wall that I can share with the team. So we are concerned about the trees that are putting back there. Very much appreciate that there are going to be trees put back there. We just had a tree removed because it was impacting, that big giant palm tree was impacting, and the owners were wonderful enough to help us get that tree out of there. So we did that. But it's an ongoing issue with roots pressing up against that tree. So we want to address that. We also want to address cut and fill concerns. I guess we're really concerned about the number of trucks that are going to be coming up and down the street. It looks like there's going to be 1,000 cubic yards of cut that's coming out of this property, which equates to, and these are very rough calculations, about 200 large dump trucks coming up and down the street. This is compounded by the fact that there are going to be construction right next door to 545 La Marina. You have been dealing with this project here. Same thing. It's going to compound the number of trucks coming up and down the street. We're concerned about the vibration. This is clay soil. Not only that, traffic. I noticed on G2, sheet G2 refers to traffic control. We want to understand what that means. Is there a traffic impact study going on? Is there a plan to minimize trips and disturbances? Is there a plan to minimize the amount of dirt being moved? Is there a plan to ensure that the soil doesn't end up in our backyard? And then, of course, the construction vibration on the adjacent structures. I know that this is a design review board.
Oh,
Jeff,
yeah, can you wrap up as much as you can? And
Okay.
yeah, please
Jeff
do.
can address the other half of this. But it is really concerning about the vibration of the construction, because there's going to be excavators, dozers,
So,
loaders.
I apologize,
Sure,
I
my
don't-
husband can.
I want to interrupt you, but I just want to make something clear here. Our purview is the aesthetics and size, bulk, and scale of the building. What you're talking about is city, something to dealt with, that needs to be dealt directly with the city, so we really don't, the concerns you have addressed should be directly with this person here and the city. We have no purview in terms of grading, drainage. That's something that's outside our purview.
No, it's really difficult because a lot of the times the neighbors don't understand how the city functions
Sure.
and where we are supposed to go
Yeah.
to have these
course.
these things addressed. So I appreciate you telling us that.
Yeah.
When and where, it's always up to, it seems like a whimsical procedure to us because
Well,
we
okay,
didn't
so-
get notification for the building that's
So let
going
me,
on
let
next
me
door.
answer that question, because that's a very good question. So one of the things that I think for a neighbor to do when they are contacted in terms of the design is that they go into the city or go on their website and go to the counter in the city and ask about the concerns about that. I don't know if you know anything about the stormwater management, the SWIMP program. They have 3 tiers. What tier level are you at?
Tier 3.
Which is the most restrictive and most comprehensive level of terms of water management and retainment of a property. So they're going to be strictly controlled in terms of how they can manage the grading. Now, as far as the dump trucks and all that stuff, that's something that needs to be worked out with the regulations in terms of the ordinances with the city of Santa Barbara. So that's the only thing I could really say to you about that. And I understand this is like the venue where you can voice that concern, but it needs to be clear that we have no control or power over that in terms of regulating that. So we can, recommend that they do less grading. We recommend, that sort of thing, and minimize the grading, which I think they've done because they've reduced the basement. But I think,
So you're telling me we can express our concerns here, but if the board it's not your purview to address the concerns? Or this is not the place for us to express these concerns?
well, that's yes and no. We do have purview over grading in terms of recommending that they reduce it or change it or something like that in respect. But how it's managed is not our purview, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll let Jeffrey continue to express his concerns.
Okay, yeah, we're running way over
And
time
then you can
here,
determine
please.
what you want to do with.
And just as a point, I can be contacted as well for general project questions or city processing. I can help you with that.
Thank you. I'll keep
Please
my-
announce yourself for public comment.
I'm Jeffrey Huff, married to Eddie, and owner of 435 La Marina. I'll keep this short.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. I think from our perspective, there's 2 projects going on directly above us, and those 2 projects are one project for us, aesthetically, and all the other issues that we're talking about. The cut and fill, the grading, the water issues, and the aesthetics. And we have never received a notice for 549 La Marina. It's a full rebuild. It's going from 1,950 square feet to 3,553 square feet with a swimming pool. We've never seen any story poles. You know, I saw your pictures of story poles, appreciate that, but we never got a notice from you guys that you were putting up story poles. So we would like to understand how we can get notified when these things are going to happen. Are we not on the right list, or how does that process work? I think all these other issues we did submit in writing to you before the meeting, so it should be in your records.
Received it just before the meeting.
Okay, all right. So you can read through those at your convenience, but I think that's the point that I want to make is, for us, it's not one project, it's 2 projects that are going to impact us, and we'd like to understand what the composite of both of those projects is going to be to our home. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Heidi, would you like to, yes, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to noticing just in general a bit, and we can also connect after the meeting if you have further questions. But a project that triggers a notice will be, you would receive one of those blue postcards in the mail of this public hearing if you were a neighbor within 300 feet of that parcel for the initial concept hearing, and then now for the project design approval hearing, which is what is being heard today. Subsequent to that, you're attending in person, so at the bottom of the speaker slip, there's a box you can check to be added to the interested parties list. That way, you would be notified anytime a project is heard for a public hearing, not just if it triggers a notice for that hearing or not. I can't speak to the other projects because I'm not privy to them as to why you may or may not have received a notice, but just in the future, just get on those interested parties list.
All right, thank you. I think that closes public comment. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
I do. The first one is for staff. So you addressed the speaker's concern about noticing, but I find that it's a frequent comment that we get from the public that they're concerned about noise, traffic control, the amount of trucks, basically the disruption to their lives while somebody is under construction. And it's a tough balancing act, I think, for the city because we have to allow people to develop their parcels just like you would want to develop yours if you had the opportunity or desire to do that. But at the same time, we want to be respectful of, your peace and quiet, right? So where in the process would somebody or a concerned neighbor step in, aside from public commenting at this board, because we don't have purview over this, to ask for increased restrictions, let's say, on the hours of construction, or logistics planning. How does a concerned neighbor enter into that process? What would be the correct agency for them to contact or department within the city? Or is there an opportunity for that?
So, Chair Miller, through you to Vice Chair Claus, thank you for the question. This is a great question that I will need to research further, but just in general, if there's a discretionary project, which is not this project, meaning a higher review body such as the staff hearing officer or planning commission reviews the project, there's project conditions of approval that stipulate construction hours, noise and such. And we don't provide that as like a land use permit at a ministerial project level such as this. I believe general conditions of approval would be provided with the building department process with the issuance of a building permit. And so the contractors have to adhere to those stipulations. So I would believe it would be at the building department phase, but I can confirm that.
Okay, so I would be interested, just for the education of the public and ourselves, whether there is an opportunity at any point in the process, if we're not involved in a higher level of discretionary review. So if it's not an SHO project, a staff hearing, if it's not a planning commission, if it's just coming to our board, is there an opportunity for the public to voice concerns over that? Okay. Back to the project. On the site plan, can you show me where I'll call it the interlocking or stacked wall is located that the Huffs are concerned about?
Sure, it's,
You're not up on this
oh,
page.
is that it there?
Yes.
Right.
So this is the wall here, and we have modified our design to help mitigate. We have modified our design, and my clients, Chris and Stephen, have agreed to do some things to help minimize impacts to that wall, which is inadequate and is definitely failing. It's not designed correctly. We're setting back the trees and the irrigation system, a minimum of 20 feet from the property line. The fence in the back is set back 6 feet from the property line adjacent to that. Mike, do you want to go over some of the other things you're doing with your civil plan?
Absolutely, yeah. Again, we do appreciate the owners inviting us out there and having a chance to understand what their concerns were. A couple of additional things that the project is incorporating now as a result of their comments. The retaining wall located just above the driveway is on gray beams and caissons. And so that wall will help to hold the soil back that's located above that. Then we have the house itself. Portion of the house is actually a basement. Both the house and the basement are also located on gray beams and caissons. So all of that acts as a wall to help hold back the soil located above it. Right below the house, the face of the house, the south face of the house, we're actually removing dirt from that because of that basement level is lower than the existing ground now, which again helps remove weight of the soil, which again is pressing down and resulting in that slow creep of the soil moving downhill. And then as she's got, trying to minimize the amount of heavy materials, landscape materials, and irrigation down on that southern portion of the site. I would also mention that because we are going with gray beams and caissons, that eliminates the need to do over-Xing and recompaction, which typically would extend out 5 feet past the building and would go down several feet below the bottom of, in this case, the basement. So going with the gray beams and caissons will help minimize the vibrations associated with the construction of this house.
Okay. Can you speak just a little bit, and this is all in the interest of just daylighting what's being done relative to this wall and potential hydrostatic pressure and all that good stuff on this wall. So the olives that you're proposing at the southerly side, can you just talk for a minute about approximately how far back from this wall they'll be and what the general nature of root structure is on an olive tree?
Yes, I terms of the setbacks from the wall, I don't have that information. I have the distance back from the south property line, which is, the nearest tree is proposed to be about 19 feet 11 inches, so just under 20 feet away from the property line, and then it looks to be, to scale up this, another 6 feet or so to the actual site wall there. The field-grown olives we can get with a very diminutive root ball, something to the tune of 2.5 feet square and probably a depth of 18 inches. That's been typical for the ones I've installed in the last 6 months. And we can get that 14-foot height out of it. And I have not experienced any issues with root invasiveness with olive trees. They're omnipresent in Santa Barbara real estate, and I've yet to have a problem with any underground utilities being affected by an olive.
Okay, thank you. Can you confirm what the amount of net cut is for the grading on the project, please?
Between the basement and the backyard grading,
I'm just talking about export, so net
About-
export
about-
anticipated.
about 900 yards.
900 yards. And a typical loader is typically 8 to 10 cubic yards, is that right, roughly? Okay, so we're talking about somewhere around 90 trips, we'll call it. Okay. Those are the only questions I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
Just on that south glazing, to me, it seems that, and correct me if, of course, if I'm wrong, that the reduction in the basement is the reduction of the glazing amount, square footage.
Actually, we did reduce the portion of the glazing that would be most visible to the neighbors, we also reduced. So I'll show you that. Apologize. So you'll notice these are full height doors and windows, and here, here, and here, all these four. Here, they're lowered down more than a foot from the ceiling, and we also brought them in slightly as well. So there was a fairly significant reduction in these windows here too, as well. And basically all the windows, with the exception of the top portion of these, are fully screened by the landscaping. And we did, let me find that, a site analysis of that too, here. You can see we calculated their sight lines. With this landscaping, our house isn't visible from the neighbors' windows on their second floor. With the 14 feet.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any questions, please?
Just a couple regarding the hardscape. So it's permeable concrete at the driveway, correct?
That's correct.
And gravel pathways
Correct.
around. What is the back patio hardscape? Is that
That was also going to be permeable.
concrete? What is the reason for permeable concrete versus permeable pavers would be my question.
For me, aesthetically, I just feel like it's a little bit more conducive to a recreational area rather than having it be a driveway. I feel like the pavers often feel like a driveway, and if you did a patio right outside your residence and permeable pavers, I feel like that might feel a little bit like you were sitting next to a driveway.
Thank you.
So, could you bring up when we make our final motion, I actually want to see this. We do make a comment about grading. I'd like to see what that motion is.
Grading findings?
Yeah, the grading findings.
Want to see them now?
Yes, please,
Can you switch over?
because it kind of helps us with our purview.
Sure.
So those are basically our findings for the grading.
Which are sorry, Chair Miller, board members. The grading findings are also covered under the hillside design and sloped lot findings as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That was my only question, so I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Collas, do you have any comments, please?
I like the project. I appreciate the fact that you came back with a softer color palette. I think the project was good to begin with, and I think the reductions probably benefit the owner from a development cost standpoint, as well as speak to some of the issues in terms of the neighborhood. I especially appreciate the study that you did in regards to the screening on the south side. We don't see that much responsiveness from applicants frequently in regards to those lantern effects and screening issues. So I really appreciate the fact that that effort was made. And I think the owners of the southerly parcel will also, as well as the reduction in the glazing that you did. So those are my only comments. I'm pleased with the changes that were made and support the project.
All right, thank you.
Chair Miller, Vice Chair Collas, just to circle back on your question from earlier, I did speak with the design review supervisor, Ellen Kokinda, and basically my answer from earlier stands. Since this is a design review project, there are standard conditions of approval that will be issued with the building permit. Those are also found within the municipal code. So there isn't really a vehicle for those to be added to during the building department process because they're standard land use or building code conditions.
Thank you. Would you be able to cite what code that is, just for the speakers'
I can look it up
edification?
and circle back.
That would be great. Thank you. That'll give you the conditions of hours of construction and things of that nature, so you'll be aware of those.
All right, thank you very much. Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Yes, agree with Leslie's comments. Support the project. I did review the videos, the minutes, the agenda. Nice set of documents, very clear, and totally agree with the photo with the added tree line. That's over the top. Love it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Klein, do you have any comments? Sorry.
Yes, I agree. I think the mass bulk and scale works aesthetically. I think the architecture works with the topography of the site. I think high quality materials are being used. I will make a comment. I'll leave it up to the client and the applicants, but porous concrete along the driveways makes sense, but closer to the home, if it works with the tier, maybe not doing a permeable surface if possible, or doing some sort of hardscape with a gap feels a little more pedestrian friendly close to the home. I think the planting is lovely and all low water, and just will add that olives do not have invasive roots. So I think that's a great selection.
Okay, great. I think the only comment I'd like to say is that hopefully you can work with the clients and understand what the stormwater management that they're up against or what they're complying with. I think, and I really want to appreciate, Leslie, your questioning and line of understanding, because this is a common issue, and especially in a situation here where you have two projects near your property that are going to be greatly impacting, what's going on. And the only answer I could really give is to understand what the requirements are, what the city's requiring, and what, on the website, the storm management, where is that located? The whole thing about stormwater management and all that requirements.
The stormwater management of a project is managed by the Creeks Department.
Creeks
so I would
Division.
defer
So
to them.
that's the site you want to go to. Anyway, so it's very comprehensive, it's very complicated, and they need, they're required to comply to that. So I think that's my only comment. With that being said, would someone like to, they're here for project design approval, someone like to entertain or move for a motion?
I'll make a motion that the project receive, that the project be, that it receive project design approval. And I think it could return to consent for final approval. And like to thank the applicant for being responsive to our comments, specifically in regards to screening, reduced glazing, and a more muted color palette. I think that's it. I would like to encourage the applicants to work with the southerly neighbors during construction, just to apprise them of maybe your logistical schedule and just give them some heads up. I think it will really help. You know, as a neighbor, I would appreciate knowing when somebody's going to come in and start boring for caissons, or you know, when impact work is being done, or even when a fence is going to go up and siltation things are going to be put in, and maybe put them in contact with your superintendent when the time comes. It's just kind of a good neighborly thing to do, since they're going to be suffering through this for probably about 9 months or a year, I would imagine, before it gets quiet. So that's not part of my motion, but I would encourage that.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, can I have roll call, please?
Can you switch over, please? Can you also include the findings, Vice Chair Kloss?
Yeah, I can make the neighborhood preservation findings because the development is consistent with the neighborhood and the scenic character of the city. It is compatible in size, bulk, and scale, and there has been sensitivity to both the topography and the neighboring parcels relative to the potential for light intrusion. Quality architectural materials are being used. We'll look forward to more information in regards to the detailing when you come back to us. And the muted colors are consistent with hillside requirements. I don't think there's any significant trees being removed, so item D is somewhat moot. And I actually think that a lot of the work that's being done from a civil engineering standpoint is going to promote the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood, and specifically for the southerly parcel. I think if implemented properly, it will actually reduce some of the strain on your soils condition. Obviously, there's been conversations going on between the neighbor and yourself, so I think that good neighborhood guidelines are being pursued, and that you've specifically addressed the privacy issues with landscape screening, and that no public views are impacted. I think I spoke to the natural topography before, so I'm not going to do that again. And again, the building scale is in keeping with the neighborhood. And the grading findings. Since you're a Tier 3 project, I'm assuming that there will be no increased siltation, and that it actually may improve conditions for the neighborhood as well as the city at large. And we don't have any loss of oak woodland habitat anticipated as the part of the project.
All right, thank you very much. Do I have a second, please?
I'll second.
All right, can I have roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kloss,
Yes.
Board Member Klein,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Chair Miller, if we could
Thank you for your
announce
time.
the appeal.
Look, and there's a 10-day appeal period for this project. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I know it's an hour. They didn't turn the clock.
Oh, God. Okay, moving on to item 4. This is a continued item. Project design approval is requested. It's 2731 El Prado Road. Proposal for additions to an existing 1,560 square foot single unit residence and a 448 square foot garage comprised of a 113 square foot first floor addition, a 903 square foot second story addition, and an 180 square foot second story deck. Project includes new windows, exterior paint, and standing seam slate gray metal roof. The proposed total of 3,024 square feet on a 10,679 square foot lot is 79% of the maximum required floor to lot area ratio. Project design approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings are required. Project was last reviewed on September 26, 2022. And if Heidi, if you could please read into the record from our previous minutes, that'd be great.
Number 1, study other roofing material that is more compatible with the adjacent neighbors. 2, study a softer color palette that is more compatible with the neighborhood. 3, the proposed mass, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and sensitive to the adjacent neighborhood.
Oh, okay, thank you. Well, if you'd like to introduce yourself and to address those minutes, that'd be great.
I'm Dennis Thompson, architect, and these two saw the project on consent about 2 months ago or so. Yep. So I think they both agreed that the massing of the building was fine, so we're kind of here to talk about the colors and the materials, but I'll walk you through the whole project for the benefit of folks who haven't seen it before. It's a one-story house in the Samarkand neighborhood on El Prado Road, just below Stanley Drive. And the proposal is to add second-story rooms in the gray areas there. So one over the garage, which is set far back from the street, and the other second-story addition would be over the back portion of the house itself. Here are the existing plans of the house. It's really a two-bedroom house. Elevations in the upper left corner, and then a roof plan. The top row shows the houses directly across the street. The middle row shows two pictures of the existing house. You can see it's set quite a ways above the street. And the garage is set so far back you can hardly see it behind the truck there. The bottom three pictures are the back of the house taken from the hill. The backyard is quite a bit elevated above the floor of the house. And here, a little stormwater, we're tier 2. Here are the proposed plans. So on the left, the existing floor plan with some remodeling, shifting things around. On the right are the two rooms added, one above the garage. The staircase, the staircase is the only part that's added to the ground floor as well. And then in the back portion of the house roof is a bedroom and a deck, upper floor deck. Here are the elevations. The top one is the street view. So on the far right is the room set over the garage. In the middle is the bedroom set over the back part of the house, and then the deck railing in front. The middle view is the backyard, which I think the floor of or the grade of the backyard is probably up about second floor level. The lower view is the north neighbor's view, and if I go here, there's one more. This is the south neighbor's view. Roof plan in the lower right corner. And the proposal is to change the asphalt shingles on the whole house to standing seam metal roof with that cool slate gray color, black windows, black trim, and a white plaster color. So you've never seen that
No.
that palette before. This is something the owner prepared, a little exhibit about nearby house colors. So 1 through 6 are the nearest houses with light color paint. A, B, and C are metal roofs. And I'll just flip through that. These are the lighter color houses in the neighborhood, not as light as we're proposing. There's a stark white, another. And this little metal roof is across the street. This one is about a block away, and this is very close to the palette we're proposing. A gray standing seam metal roof, white walls, and black windows. Here's one more that's a couple blocks away with a metal roof. So the consent calendar folks were split evenly. I think one member thought this palette was fine, the other thought it wasn't appropriate. So I guess I'm here to convince the remaining board members of this color choice. I would just say it's not a radical color scheme. There are no neighbors here opposed to this color scheme. You see it all over. You see it in the magazines. You see it in Montecito. You see it in Hope Ranch. And I would just hope you'd let these folks have the colors that they want.
I put money on who liked it and who didn't. But I'm not a betting person.
Who was on consent when this was being reviewed?
You and Katie.
Yeah, both of us.
You don't
Oh,
remember?
why don't I even okay, wow. Okay. All right, did we get any public comment?
Ms. Gu, can you please switch to my screen? Chair Miller, board members, we did not receive any written correspondence that was distributed prior to the hearing. So for those who are attending on Zoom and wish to make oral public comment, please select the raise your hand icon. Staff will click on you. When we do so, please unmute yourself while we give those on Zoom a chance. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to make oral public comment on this item? Looks like none. Ms. Gu, do you see any raised hands on Zoom?
No, on Zoom I do not see any raised hands at this time. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Back to you, Chair Miller.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it back to the chair for questions. Does anyone have I'll just open it. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm just wondering if we actually have, do we actually have a color board or a photo board of the proposed colors?
Yeah, on the elevation, if I go back here, it's very white and very black. The roof is a dark gray, kind of a charcoal gray.
Okay, so it's a very dark, it's not a lighter gray
The
roof then?
No,
It's a truly dark color,
I mean,
okay.
I'd call it charcoal.
It's the only question I have. I would get into comments then.
All right, does anyone else have any questions?
I do. I mean,
Yes.
the reason why we came from consent to full board is just the colors?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Was that your only question?
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions? All right, does anyone have any comments, please? Okay, so let me defend myself, since we did have a.
You're telling on yourself. No
I
one
know.
knows who was the
Well,
one.
that's the wonderful thing about having more than just two people split. If there was some more people that would vote me off or out, then that's fine. But my concern was that the black and white is too much of an extreme for this already established neighborhood, and that was my only concern. Wasn't that it? I think that was it. So if you think that was not worth it, then that's definitely your purview. So I'll bring it back for comments. So Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any comments, please?
It is very black and white. When I saw slate gray, I thought it was going to be a bit of a softer gray. So it does feel like it's going to be relatively stark. Without having a sample of the slate gray, it's really, that looks lighter to me than what is being rendered on the sample board, so to speak. And I think this is a broader topic, I think, maybe, for staff to consider, is that when we're looking at colors and materials on photographs, they never render properly. And I mean, try as you might, they just don't. And so I understand the burden of staff not wanting to have to keep these things in a file like we used to. But I really do think that it would be helpful when we're looking at projects for final approval that we have some material samples. Because when I look at this photograph, I think that it's not that dark of a gray, if that is in fact what's being proposed. But when I look at the color board, it looks black. So I don't know what's actually being proposed. It's hard to know. Which makes rendering a decision difficult.
Okay, Board Member Anderson.
something we should look at? Is that
It is
helpful?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Do you have any comments, Board Member Anderson?
I mean, all of the major issues of harmonious addition, blah, 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 have been met. So if we're just talking about color, and plaster color can be changed when we're tired of it, then I think that the focus is a bigger focus, that it's compatible with the neighborhood. I mean,
Okay, no, that's valid. Okay, thank you. Board Member Arcalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I do appreciate all of the elevations and, you know, looking at the FAR and, you know, I'm trying to study like the placement of the structure and, you know, its prominence from street view, and just after reviewing it further, I think it's, I would find the proposed color supportable. That's
All
it.
right.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. And Board Member Klein, do you have any comments, please?
Just that I don't think it's not aesthetically appropriate. I think it's a simplistic palette and it doesn't stand out to me as not aesthetically appropriate.
Okay, my feeling on the matter was that it should be a little more muted. You show that picture, that sample, that one house where it's kind of gray and a more tan wall, which I think is a little more compatible to the neighborhood, but to Board Member Anderson's credit, is just a paint color. So normally that wouldn't even go before our board, but that was my concern, and I kind of apologize that we pull you back on the board. So would someone like to craft a motion quickly, please?
I would like to make a motion for project design approval and excuse me, I'll start over. I would like to make a motion to have this project returned to I'm sorry. Okay. Excuse me. I would like to make a motion for project design review approval and for the project to return to the consent calendar for final approval with the following comment. That the board generally finds the proposed building color to be aesthetically appropriate, or aesthetically appropriate. The proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. The proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood, and its size, bulk, and scale is appropriate to the site and the neighborhood. The proposed building and structure is designed with quality architectural details and materials such as the plaster finish and the roofing, windows, and doors. The proposed project does not include the removal of or significantly impact any designated trees. The public health, safety, and welfare are appropriately protected and preserved. Project generally complies with good neighbor guidelines. The development, including proposed structures and grading, preserves significant public scenic views of and from the hillside.
Can I ask a clarifying question, please, to the motion maker? So comment 1 was project specific in that the board generally finds the colors to be aesthetically appropriate. Can we just clarify that that means the exterior paint and the roof, so when this project goes to consent, it's very clear?
Excuse me, yes, that's what I meant. Thanks.
I'll second.
All right, may I have a roll call, please?
Here we go. Chair Miller,
I'm still going to say no.
Vice Chair Colas.
Yes.
Okay. Board Member Anderson,
yes.
Board Member Arcalian,
Yes.
and Board Member Klein.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And if
Motion
board
passes.
member, or Chair Miller, can you state your reasons for no?
I still feel the colors are too extreme and should be more muted from neighborhood compatibility issues.
And can you please announce the appeal?
Oh, and there's a 10-day appeal period.
Thank you.
And for the record, I have to step down. I'm part of the applicant team, and if you could read the sole proprietor thing.
Okay. Okay, we're moving on to item number 5. We're right on time. This is a continued item. Project design approval and final approval is requested. 648 Ricardo Avenue. Proposal for substantial redevelopment of an existing single-unit residence, including a 494 square foot addition to a 1,055 square foot non-conforming residence, a 65 square foot reduction to the 474 square foot two-car garage, and an interior remodel. Project includes demolition and reconstruction of all exterior walls, an increase in plate heights, new retaining walls, a new low-profile wood deck, and associated site and landscape improvements. Staff hearing officer approval was granted to allow reconstruction of exterior walls within the required 30-foot front setback. The proposed total of 1,958 square feet on a 14,334 square foot lot is 46% of the required floor-to-lot area ratio. Project design approval and final approval is requested. Neighborhood preservation findings and hillside design district and slope lot findings will be required to be made at project design approval. Project was last reviewed on February 14th, 2022. Heidi, if you'd like to. God, I'm sorry.
It's
If you could read into the record, please, Holly,
Yes.
the minutes.
I'll do it right after. Oh, okay. Yeah. 1. The board can support the addition in the front yard setback associated with the expansion of the garage, as it is consistent with the existing front line of the residence, does not create a detriment to the neighboring parcel on the west, and is aesthetically appropriate and does not pose consistency issues with the Single-Family Design Review Board guidelines. The board's comments from the prior hearing still stand and are not affected, just augmented by the current motion. And I can pull up the sole proprietor.
Yes, please.
For the future, we'll include it in the slides.
Wasn't that what's just read?
The second item in the motion refers to the prior meeting comments.
Okay.
In here? Out here?
It's just the highlighted.
State Fair Political Practice Act, FPPC Regulation 18702-4B5 states that an official may appear before a design or architectural review committee of which he or she is a member to present, explain architectural or engineering drawings which the official has prepared for a client. Board Member Klein is a sole practitioner and is using this exception, understanding certain limits regarding advocating on behalf of their client. Now, before we go on, could we review the minutes from the previous motion as well?
I'll have to pull them up.
Okay, thank you.
So I have to look them up online. It may take a minute. We can continue on with the applicant
Sure, if you'd like to
presentation.
introduce yourself and show us your project.
For August 16.
Okay, thank you. 2021.
Oh, okay.
I'm Natalie Phillips, the architect, and we are here. Thank you, Natalie Phillips, the architect.
Yeah.
We are here today for final. So I was going to address the minutes.
Perfect.
Would you
Go
like
for it.
me to?
Yes.
I can read them if you'd like. I have them.
That works.
Sure.
Sure.
The first four are basically just comments. The board is in support of the project. The roof line is a great improvement over the prior iteration reviewed by the board. The project as proposed is compatible size, bulk, and scale with the neighborhood. There are no negative effects of privacy for the immediate neighbors. Those were just comments that were made in our first 4 meeting minutes.
Got it. Thank you.
In the next 4, the applicant shall return to the full board after the show hearing to review the greater detail in the proposed landscaping, and the landscape plan should be complete. We have provided that today. When the project returns to full board, the board would like to see final details, cut sheets of the proposed exterior lighting, also provided here today. The board recommends that the applicant confer with project owners and consider whether exterior shading devices are needed on the south elevation. We have provided those.
Okay.
And the final item was applicant shall consider a slightly lighter version of the exterior siding as part of their final design. And we have reviewed that further. However, we have not changed that color selection that we've made, and we can show you the final selections in our color board.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
I'll just give you a basic general of the project is the fact that it's a single-story residence. Our additions are at the rear of the house, here in the shaded areas, as well as one little foot of addition at the garage here in order to get us a compliant garage size for transportation. Other than that, we're maintaining a one-story house, basically in the same footprint that we have. The reason this project went to show was because we are maintaining the footprint in the front yard setback, and that got approval. And just to go into our elevations here, we've provided all of our detailing as required for final. This is our cut sheet for our light. It's dark sky compliant. All of our window and door trims, skylight detailing, roof detailing. And then here you'll see, this is a awning that we've proposed on the south elevation per the suggestion of the board at the last meeting. And sorry, I didn't show that on the elevation, but it is just a metal awning here with louvered. Very simple. It'll be on two windows in the back, one over the kitchen and one over the master bedroom. Would you like to see those in elevation?
Yes, please.
That's right here. And right here. You can see in the side elevation how those project. They're only a 2.5 foot projection. And this is our final material board color palette. Again, this is the horizontal wood siding. It's the Shoshujiban burnt wood. And in just juxtaposition to that, we have the vertical fluted, it's called NewTek wood in a much lighter color here. And then we have the dark bronze metal roof, dark bronze windows and doors, and then an accent door at the front entry. We've been through significant stormwater review with creeks. We have all of that completed and approved. And then we have our landscape plans fully completed. Just thinking. And I'll go to the final palette here. And if you have any questions regarding this, we have our landscape architect here. Would you like me to go into any further details, or would you like to?
No, I think that's good, and if we have any questions, we'll definitely address them.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, bring it back to the board for questions. Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions?
Chair Miller, can we please open public comment?
Oh, I guess so, yes. Can we have public comment, please? Sorry.
Ms. Gu, please switch to my screen. So Chair Miller, board members, we did not receive any written correspondence prior to this hearing. So if any of those attending on Zoom wish to make oral public comment on this item, please click on the raise your hand icon. Staff will call on you and you can unmute yourself. Not seeing anyone in the audience to provide oral public comment. Ms. Gu, do you see any raised hands on Zoom?
Actually, I do not see any raised hands for this particular item at this time. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes public comment. Back to you.
All right, Vice Chair Kalas, do you have any questions, please?
Yes, can we please see the site plan? On the floor plan you were showing, I guess it's on the west side. I guess the site plan is inverted relative to the floor plans, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So I'm seeing the trash storage area, and it looks like there might be a water heater, and is there a compressor or equipment over there?
Yes,
And is that, that's outside of the setback?
correct.
Okay. Is there any proposed landscape or pathway lighting?
Yes.
Okay, could we see that, please?
What sheet you'd like me to go to?
Yeah, we have a lighting plan. You just start kind of. There it is. So we have images of the lighting. There's step light in the deck, and then there's just low voltage path lighting, really minimal throughout the whole space wherever there's pedestrian pathways, essentially.
And those are it's hard to read, I'm sorry, my old eyes. That's the path lighting, so that's just kind of a low bollard that shines down, is that?
Yeah, there's an image to the left, and the spec is up top.
Sorry.
There.
Okay, great. And then if we could look at the south elevation, please. Kind of skipping around here, I apologize. So the shade elements were introduced on the two flanking pieces of glazing, but there's no shade element on that central tall element, is that right?
There's a bit of overhang from the roof on that element.
Okay. And if I'm remembering right, there's a really large conifer in the front yard. And I'm just wondering if there's, you're here for finals, so I'm just wondering if there's any notes on the plans relative to the drip line or protection of that tree during construction.
Yes, definitely. We have a tree protection plan that has all those notes on it, and an arborist report that has, if you see the red boxes, that's the tree mitigation measures that should happen in construction.
Okay. And what tier is this project?
Tier 3.
Okay. Those are the only questions I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions, please?
Do you have the renderings? And yes, I did review the videos, minutes, drawings, and agenda of the previous 3 or 4 submittals. And then I also wanted you to go through the window and door details in more detail. I mean, spend the time so we can see what you're proposing.
Oh, here we go. These were the renderings that were originally provided here. And then some kind of perspective views.
Ooh, thank you. Yeah, so nothing really has changed from the previous.
No.
Okay, yeah, so if you could just go over the window and door details and your minimalist Scandinavian detailing.
And that is exactly what it is. It is minimalist. It's very simple. A very simple surround at both the windows and the doors. The detailing is very specific, however, in the fact that the materials that we're using are different in depth. So we had to be very careful as to how to make sure everything finishes clean.
So you have a standard head jam and sill, dimensional, and it's flush with whatever finish.
Correct.
And it's 2 inches or?
Yes.
Okay.
Very
I'm just
minimalistic,
guessing.
very simple, yes. And we have no overhang at the roof, so it's flush. And this is only at the porch and the back patio is a small overhang.
Yeah, usually they're tight or, yeah. So Holly, did we present in the last round that we can combine design and final on the same approval?
This project has received its discretionary approval from the staff hearing officer, so you are able to grant project design approval and final approval today in one hearing.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Board Member Arkalian, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I'll bring it back to the board for comments. Vice Chair Claus, do you have any comments?
No, I think the applicants have responded to our previous comments. I struggle with this project. I think I've struggled with it from the beginning, from a compatibility standpoint, but I understand where we're at in the process, and I'll just leave it at that. I think our comments have been addressed.
Thank you. Board Member Anderson, do you have any comments, please?
Yeah, I'm coming in late, so reinventing what's been approved, but I feel that it's not compatible. I feel there could potentially be design changes that would make it that Scandinavian Nordic design that you're headed for, but in that Mesa area, to me, that's not something that's compatible with the neighborhood. So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, Board Member Arkalian, do you have any comments, please?
I do. I just want to appreciate the applicants for providing all these additional details, the lighting, et cetera. It just helps me understand the project a lot better. Similar to the last meeting, I see that the color of the siding, the charred siding has not changed, which is fine. I mean, which is fine as a board, but for me, I'm still not in support with that color as it relates to neighborhood compatibility, that particular color. But it's okay because there's the rest of the board, so if you get the approval to move forward, then it's okay. That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you. It's really difficult for us because we don't like being the bad guy or saying, so we get really funny about this, but there are valid concerns about, it's not like the design of the house is bad, it's just that based on our purview of neighborhood compatibility. So if it's all flat roof 50s construction that looked like something, and then you bring this in, we're like, but we're not going to go there in terms of, because you've already been approved. But the other thing I underscore too is it's single story and you're way under the FAR. So it's like, technically, and to be honest with you, normally you wouldn't even go before our board. So I'm curious to know what kicked us off. What was the reason we did?
So this project required a modification, which was granted by the staff hearing officer. It was a front setback modification to reconstruct what was there essentially, or what is there.
So that was the only reason that kicked you into the, okay. So with that being said, can someone entertain a motion? And they're here for project and final approval, please. Project design and final, if someone would like to make a motion.
Can we take a vote on the siding issue since it was a comment in terms of the siding color?
Can we go back to that?
That's my primary cause of concern. I'm hearing that from Board Member Arkalian too, and so I'm wondering if
Okay, so-
there's an opportunity to
Sure.
increase compatibility.
Okay.
May I make one comment to maybe
yes,
help?
Of course.
I mean, I did hear the most recent project that was just up here, and it was the fact that you didn't want a white structure.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm not saying that black or white is the best way to go, but the thing about this is that it's natural wood. It has a variation to it that hopefully you can kind of see in these photos, that some of them are lighter, some of them are darker. It has the natural grain that shows. While it's a dark color to start with, as much as we'd like to keep it dark, it will naturally fade some as well. But the point is that they like this color. This is the design that they've gone with. It is going in the Scandinavian design that we've gone through many iterations here at this board. And while it was something that was asked to be reviewed, it truly was. And this is the determination that this is the direction the client would really like to go. So I would hope that, that would be considered.
Right, understood. What I'm struggling with is that we don't live in Scandinavia. And that our design aesthetic, our underlying aesthetic here in Santa Barbara is born of Mediterranean architecture and our climate. So this would be like me trying to go to, Iceland and saying, I'm going to, propose a Italianate villa. So there's an underlying vernacular conflict here. And so, and we have bright sun here. We're not in Scandinavia where you want to attract the sun with a dark color. We want typically lighter colors to reflect the sun. There's reasons for that from an environmental standpoint. So I can appreciate what the client wants, but our purview is whether this is compatible with the neighborhood or not, and with the city at large. And I'm struggling with the dark color. So that's the reason for the straw vote.
I understand. I do want to, if we need to pull up, we have multiple neighborhood letters of approval or agreement to the project, so I just want to make sure that that's on record as well.
I support it. The house is too small to really, and they've already been on before our board several times, so.
But that was a comment that we've made historically. We've been consistent with that.
Okay, so are you saying you would like to see that wood a lighter color?
I think that was the request in the meeting minutes.
Okay.
So yes, I would.
Okay, so
That's my vote.
I respect.
That's my
okay,
straw vote.
Who would like to,
Here we go. How many board members can still support the proposed dark natural wood siding color? Board Member Anderson? Yes or no?
No.
I'm sorry, Chair Miller?
yes?
Yes. And Board Member Arkelian?
No.
Board Member, I'm sorry, Vice Chair Kalas?
I cannot support the dark horizontal. I can support the vertical wood as proposed. So no, is the simple answer.
Okay, so the board is requesting it be a lighter color. So do you have a specific, what would you like to suggest in terms of color?
I don't want to make that decision for the applicant. I know that this is treated in a particular way to arrive at this color, so I don't know what an alternative would be.
But you are requesting a lighter color.
Yes.
If it does age and it gets lighter, is that acceptable to bring or pull up a picture of that if we have it? Like how much lighter, I guess, would be the question.
I'm definitely going to need some direction. I mean, am I going a shade lighter? Am I going gray? And then one has to consider the design of the project too. If it's a gray structure, it's no longer this Scandinavian look. Well, so then we're not compatible with the design that we've provided.
Yes, I request from the maker of this movement, change of color, that since it's gone before us and it's already been approved, that we have to be specific in terms of a color.
It has not been approved. That was a specific comment in previous meetings.
All right.
That we
All
were
right,
not
but
necessarily in support of that, and we were asking for a lighter color, and they have not responded to that. So in my mind, it would be an aged cedar, something along those.
An
lines.
age cedar type look.
Yeah, like a grayed out aged cedar.
Well, I guess we can
Can you
make that,
pull up the minutes? I would just like to see how it was written for item number 8,
It was August, what did you say?
August 16th. Again, I just, as I read them, the applicant shall consider a slightly lighter version of the exterior siding as part of their final design. At that point in time, to me, it felt as though it was not something that would stop us from getting a final review, that it was to be considered. It was highly considered. So I'm concerned because I know that the applicant, the client is not going to be satisfied with a light gray.
Could we lessen the amount of the charred black wood? Would that, I mean, I think there's always alternate solutions. Can you come up with more of the neutral vertical potentially? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Ms. Gu, can you please switch to my screen just for the record? Here are the meeting minutes.
There you go. From now on, I won't use the word consider. I'll just delete it from my vocabulary.
well, the applicant has not, we considered, she considered it and declined it.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
No,
so,
it shouldn't use the
well,
word consider. That's a polite way of requesting that that be done.
well, I really want to move this project forward, and apparently the board is requesting it be a lighter color, so, or a lighter shade than the dark, so, and I'm outvoted, so I can't.
Could we give it PDA and have them return to consent for final with a change in the exterior siding color? Is
You
that
can
possible in terms of
provide a
keeping it moving
condition.
forward?
You
Pardon
can-
me?
You can provide a condition on the project.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to keep it moving.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can grant project design approval today and continue to consent for final approval.
So why don't you make, why don't you move a motion for that?
Is that gonna help you at all?
I can't come back with a light gray. I could come back with possibly a slightly lighter version of this. Maybe I can show, for example, how this would weather to a lighter color from the manufacturer.
I don't know the solution to our situation.
Go ahead and make the motion, just go ahead. And, you know, you-
I'm going to make a motion for project design approval and that the project be continued to consent for final approval with the comment that the exterior Shoji-Bon siding be changed to a lighter color, a significantly lighter color, and can make the neighborhood preservation findings in that the project is consistent with I don't know that I can make,
You want me to make the motion?
yeah, please.
Like, to make a motion to bring the project back to consent for final approval with the following findings. The consistent, with the condition that the client look for a lighter shade for the siding, but the consistency and appearance of the proposed development is consistent with the scenic character of the city and will enhance the appearance of the neighborhood. That the proposed development is compatible with the neighborhood in size, bulk, and scale and is appropriate to the site and neighborhood. Quality architecture and materials, the proposed buildings and structure are designed with quality architectural details. The proposed materials and colors maintain the natural appearance of the ridgeline and hillside. No trees are being affected by this project. The health and safety and welfare of as being appropriately protected and preserved. Good neighbor guidelines have been followed. No one from the neighbor, no, there had been no spoken or input from adjoining neighbors. Public views, are including proposed structures and grading, does not significantly impact views from the hillside. The natural topography of the development is appropriate to the site. The development maintains a scale and form that blends with the hillside by minimizing visual appearance structures and the overall height of structures.
Chair Miller, just to clarify, so your comment is for the applicant shall look for a lighter shade for the siding.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. The condition
Just
is
wanna
that
be
the
clear.
board feels that the current dark shade of the wood siding is not appropriate and should be a lighter shade. The majority of the board feels that.
And can I ask the maker of the motion, in terms of your comment about the color, by using a different material?
As an option?
Or,
Or are you requiring that they use a different material?
You're
So,
redesigning my project.
Yeah, I think we're way overstepping. I think because it's way under the FAR, and they're only here because of a modification, I think we should just keep it at that. That's my request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, do I have a second? Because if you don't have a second, the motion fails, and someone's gonna have to make a second, a new motion.
I have a second, given the condition about the exterior siding that you've placed on the motion. I'll second it.
Okay. Also clarification, Chair Miller, I
Yeah.
think there was that Vice Chair Colossus mentioned about a tree. I think it was a conifer tree. Was it a conifer tree? There was mentioned that there was a tree protection plan in place.
Yeah, the tree's not being affected, though, so the
Okay.
tree findings can be made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can I have a roll call, please?
Chair Miller,
Yes?
Vice Chair Colossus,
Yes.
Board Member Anderson.
Are we just a roll call? Sorry, I'm newer, so.
This is
Are we
just
just
for-
a roll call, or are we saying we're supporting the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
So can I say no?
Yes.
And it doesn't really matter because I'm one.
Okay.
Board Member
And-
Anderson, you can vote no, and you would have to state why, please, for the record.
Define distinctive architectural style. And I know it's a moot point, and I wasn't involved, so I apologize, but it's my option to say no.
Okay. That there's a lack of distinctive architectural style? Yes. Okay. And Board Member O'Kelly.
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe that's the last item on the agenda, so I close the Single Family Design Board for November 7th. Thank you very much. I hope everyone goes and votes tomorrow.